You're welcome to the Gavel. I'm Linda Akibi. The leadership positions in the Senate and House of Representatives are now fully occupied. The Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives announced the principal officers from the majority and minority parties to fill up the leadership positions in both houses. Now, the majority and minority officers selected in the House of Representatives were largely expected, and we have not learnt of any discord from the nominations. However, the selection of the majority and minority lawmakers for the Senate leadership appears to have caused a rift among lawmakers. Now, in the case of the minority positions, some lawmakers say they were not consulted in the choice of the principal officers. For the majority positions, there are questions as regards the input from the ruling APC in the selection of the officers. Now, let's take a look at the announcement of the principal officers of the Senate and House of Representatives during the week. It's back to work for these federal legislators on Tuesday, July 4th, who are resuming after a 2-week recess to allow them settle down for the task ahead.
First and foremost,
they had gone on a break a day after the inauguration of a 10th Assembly. The Speaker welcomes his colleagues with a speech which touched on the security situation in the country.
Internal security remains precarious and challenging. In the course of our recess, the nation witnessed unprovoked attacks on innocent citizens of the Federal University Gusau, the killing of farmers in Birningwari, the attacks in the communities in Mangu local government of Plateau State, the reported killings in Anambra State, and other such cases that are reported and often unreported. We shall take adequate and proactive legislative steps for them, strengthening our security forces to rid our nation of these criminals.
He then reads 2 letters stating the names of the majority and minority leadership of the House.
Honorable Julius Ehobere, APC Edo, as Majority Leader. Honorable Halems Abdullahi, APC Kogi, as Deputy Majority Leader. Number 1, Honorable Kingsley Chinda has been nominated as the minority leader, and he is from the party PDP extraction. Honorable Ali Hussain Madaki, Guinea, as deputy minority leader from the NNPP.
Representative Kingsley Chinda's emergence comes 4 years after the Speaker of the Ninth House, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, refused to recognize his nomination by the PDP on the grounds that there were other minority parties who had put forward their own nominations to include other members of the PDP at the time. Representative Kingsley Chinda is a loyalist of the immediate past governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, who appears to have formed an alliance with the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC. This is a concern for a member of the party and former spokesperson of the Atiku Presidential Campaign Organization.
Kingsley Chinda is an apologist of Wike. Wike is doing his youth service with APC. Wike's spirit, soul, and body is with APC. So if the leadership of the party is an appendage of Nyesom Wike, for example, what confidence will I, as a person, now I'm not talking about a party, right? I'm giving my personal opinion. And that's why I told you that the spokesperson thing has been dissolved. So we are just free members of the party expressing our thoughts. How confident will I be that such an individual will pose opposition? Wike is as alleged, is looking for juicy appointment in this government. He would ordinarily not want people associated with him to be a problem to the government.
The diversity in both chambers of the National Assembly has produced a minority leadership to include the New Nigeria People's Party and the Labour Party. However, of interest is the fact that only one female lawmaker has been named as a member of the leadership of the House, specifically the majority All Progressives Congress. The resumption of plenary session in the Red Chamber begins with the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, announcing the names of the principal officers from the majority All Progressives Congress, who he says emerged by consensus.
APC, the All Progressive Congress, caucus of the Senate, after due consultations, have emerged with their leadership, which will be the fulcrum of commencing other businesses in the chambers. So I'm happy to announce that by consensus, the Senate leader is Senator Opeyemi Bamidele. He will be the majority leader of the Senate and the Senate leader. Senator Mohammed Ali Ndume will be the chief whip of the 10th Senate. Senator David Umahi, by your consent, will act as the deputy leader, and Senator Oyorola Isha Ashiru will be the deputy chief whip.
He's ready to announce the names of the principal officers of the minority parties. But it appears some senators want further discussions on this matter, prompting the Senate President to call for an executive session.
So we'll go for a 10-minute closed session before further announcement.
Less than 30 minutes later, the session ends, plenary resumes, and the Senate President makes an announcement.
Majority of members of the minority caucus of the Senate, made up of about 7 political parties, have come up with their leadership. So I will just proceed to announce. Senator Simon Davor Nwakwom, minority leader. Distinguished Senator Oyewumi Olarere, deputy minority leader. Distinguished Senator Darlington Wokocha, minority whip. Distinguished Senator Rufai Hanga, deputy minority whip.
Curiously, all principal officers in the minority leadership are all former lawmakers in the House of Representatives and none from the Senate.
To also lend my voice.
In his acceptance speech, the new minority leader gives a signal of how the minority in the 10th Senate will conduct itself.
The sense of the minority leadership is not to wage war with the leadership of the National Assembly, but to be partners in progress, to see to the success, the growth, development of this country. We work as a team, but we also stand on our rights as minorities, and we hope that the uncommon Senate President would always listen to our plight as minorities.
But the emergence of the principal officers in the minority appears to have ruffled the feathers of some senators from minority parties.
I cannot imagine I'm a senator of the Federal Republic and of Nigeria on a minority party, and a minority leader has emerged without even sending me a text message that I'm seeking for your vote or your concurrence, support to be a minority leader. What type of party are we having in PDP? We have 36 out of the 50 senators that are in the minority caucus, and then we cannot even come together and agree who should lead us.
The position that went to Senator Hanga should have gone to somebody out of from the minority from a different state, so as to continue to balance, because the Deputy Senate Presidency is already in Kano.
In a parley with journalists at the National Assembly, the new majority leader makes some clarifications.
It doesn't matter how many people are in PDP. It remains a minority party, just like YPP or ABGA with only one senator who came in on that vehicle or on that platform. Basically, what was most important, what was more democratic, was for all 50 of them to meet as minorities and take their decisions. They had some meetings that were deadlocked, and it wasn't for us to look into what they were doing. We had enough to be concerned about as a majority party. It was their own decision. And they took their decisions. And like I said, 38 people signed their full names, their signature, the constituency that they represent. They put it there. That carries more weight. If PDP had written, Labour Party would have dissociated itself from it. If Labour Party had written, NNPP would have dissociated itself. If NNPP had written, APGA might have dissociated itself. And look at the leadership that they produced. Minority leader is from PDP that has the majority of members, 36 members. Then, of course, the deputy minority leader is also of PDP. All right, PDP. So PDP has two.
Legislative work commenced in earnest in the National Assembly during the week. Now, lawmakers in the Senate and House of Representatives presented a plethora of motions and legislative interventions on several national issues during the week. Nigeria's aviation sector is once again on the front burner of discussions in the National Assembly. This time, attention is on the concessioning of the Aminu Kano International Airport, Kano. The last time the Senate discussed matters surrounding the sector was in the twilight of the 9th Senate, when the Aviation Committee lampooned the rollout of the nation's national carrier, Nigeria Air.
Mr. President.
During Thursday's plenary session, Senator Sumaila Kawu moved a motion that the concessioning of the Aminu Kano International Airport was not executed transparently. It's an opinion shared by a majority of legislators.
Observes that the faulty gaps inherent in the concession will lead to RE of lawsuit and thereby embarrassing the current administration. Mr. President, accordingly, I am urging this Senate to condemn in strong terms the concession of Malam Aminu Kano International Airport as it was done, and it was not done in public interest.
Why do you concede? You do it because of some parameters laid. But this particular concession was done in a dubious manner, in a manner that begets any imagination.
Some lawmakers also condemned the concessioning of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, questioning some of the actions carried out by the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari in the aviation sector.
So many things have been done wrong in the outgoing or the previous administration. It is not only Malam Aminu Kano International Airport, but all concessions done hurriedly and without following due process should be thoroughly investigated, reversed, and actions taken about it.
When a nation is making over $990-something million per annum, and then you concession that very large hub airport for $1.something million, collecting $1.something million, is criminal.
Federal Executive Council did not do due diligence in approving this concession. And since due diligence has not been done, we should investigate the circumstances.
The Senate resolved to direct its Committee on Aviation, when constituted, to probe the concessioning of the Aminu Kano and Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airports.
The ayes have it.
Meanwhile, the Senate intends to investigate a gas processing deal involving the Ministry of Finance, Niger Delta Power Holding Company, Calabar Generation Company Limited, and Akogas Limited. According to the sponsor of the motion, the gas supply agreement is disadvantageous for Nigeria, but the process of getting the country out of the agreement further plunged the nation into another problem.
The then Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Dr. Zainab Hamed, initiated a makeup gas mug reprocessing deal involving Calabar Genco and Akogas Limited. Further observed that the controversial mug deal was devoid of transparency and allegedly involved the payment of huge sums as fees to the transaction advisors.
The upper chamber is urging the federal government to ensure due diligence in the preparation and execution of transaction agreements with investors to avoid the scenario the federal government is facing under the gas supply agreement with Akogas and several other entities. You're welcome back to the Gavel. We continue with a look at more legislative interventions in the National Assembly during the week.
It was a flurry of motions and legislative interventions since the resumption of legislative proceedings on Tuesday, July the 4th. One of them is the allegation of result forgery against Ms. Mmesoma Ejikeme.
Mr. Speaker, if we allow that institution to so reduce itself, no matter the circumstance, Mr. Speaker, it was an open challenge to our educational system and standard. I have watched, painfully so, sir, someone from the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board ascribing to itself the powers to accuse, the powers to investigate, and the powers to even prefer punishments without giving opportunities for fair hearing.
Lawmakers unanimously support the motion.
Let's give this ad hoc committee an opportunity to come up with a thorough investigation.
So you're in support of the motion?
I'm in support of the motion.
All right,
so
thank
that
you.
we exonerate this girl. And I appeal to JAM to soften the ban on this girl until the investigation is concluded.
Another matter for investigation is a potential land encroachment by the Cameroonian government in Cross River State.
I'm worried that the JTT has not located Pillar 113A and not tracing Pillar 113A. They are planning to adopt a straight line method which will lead to losing Danare and Biaga communities and about 7,000 to 10,000 hectares of land in Boki local government of Cross River State to the Republic of Cameroon.
Meanwhile, the House is to investigate alleged mismanagement of personnel recruitment, employment racketeering, and gross mismanagement of the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System of the federal government, NDAS.
Public institutions have since stopped the process of advertising for jobs and vacancies. Even in few instances, Mr. Speaker, where adverts are published, the slots are already commoditized and available for the highest bidders. In other words, most public institutions now sell employment positions, Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the qualification of the applicant and the ability of the applicant to perform optimally on the job.
The House sets up an ad hoc committee mandated to report back within 4 weeks. The House of Representatives received a letter from President Bola Tinubu for the confirmation of appointments of the heads of security agencies.
In compliance with the provisions of Section 18, subsection 1 of the Armed Forces Act, Cap A 20, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, I am pleased to present for confirmation by the Senate the 4 nominees listed below as Chief of Defense Staff and Service Chiefs of the Armed Forces, as well as the House of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Lawmakers then debate a viral video on social media of gunmen terrorizing Isheke Daily Market, located in Ebonyi State, on the 4th of July 2023.
Regrets that 2 persons were reported dead and about 20 persons sustained various degrees of body injuries. Also regret that the report indicates that the victims of this incident are mostly natives of the community who had gone out to engage in economic activities.
The lawmakers want President Tinubu to consult with political, traditional, and religious leaders in Ebonyi State and the Southeast in general to find a lasting solution to the insecurity in the region. Meanwhile, the House is asking the Chief of Army Staff, Inspector General of Police, and Commandant General of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps to set up a joint patrol team to comb the farmlands and forests to root out kidnappers, bandits, and all criminal elements in all parts of Isikwato and Umunneochi local government areas of Abia State.
The regional cattle market at Lower Banta on the Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway has persistently been used as a human shield by criminal elements, with the presence of military checkpoints dotted significantly along that route.
In the meantime, the Students' Loan Bill signed into law by President Bola Tinubu on the 12th of June 2023 also got the attention of the lawmakers who are concerned about its implementation.
The House also resolves to constitute an ad hoc committee to convene a legislative summit on student loans and access to higher education with all stakeholders in the education sector and policymakers to ensure Speaker, in order to ensure effective and efficient implementation of the program and to report back within 3 weeks for further legislative action. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Meanwhile, the House is calling for publication of laws passed in the country, which they believe will enhance legislative practice, legal practice, and justice administration in Nigeria, as well as avoid duplication of laws.
Concerns that the non-compilation of the laws of the Federation of Nigeria has affected easy access to and creates uncertainty as to the applicable laws in Nigeria and impedes the legislature from effectively performing their legislative functions of making or amending laws, the judiciary from properly interpreting the laws of the land, the law enforcement agencies from knowing the right laws to enforce, etc.
Also, the outbreak of diphtheria in the country was also discussed. The House is asking the Federal Ministry of Health and the Nigeria Center for Disease Control to ensure that the outbreak of diphtheria is contained effectively and reduce the fatality ratio in confirmed cases.
As the 10th National Assembly is now in full swing, we begin a series on the program where we speak with federal lawmakers in the Senate and House of Representatives on their plans for their constituents in the next 4 years.
I have a lot of programs that I intend to, by the grace of God, implement in the constituency in terms of infrastructural development, in terms of agriculture, in terms of creating employment, in terms of creating small businesses for women and engaging youth in various training and programs that will, help improve the quality of their lives and add value to, their lives and also add value to the constituency. My constituency is agrarian in nature. So in terms of agriculture, in terms of provision of fertilizers, provision of funds that will cushion the hardship that my constituents are going through, we'll do everything possible within our power to ensure that something is done to improve and add value to, the kind of agricultural products that are being produced in my constituency. I will also want to work hard to ensure that by the grace of God, the level of unemployment in the constituency has reduced to the, barest minimum. Not really creating direct jobs, maybe government jobs, but we can also see a way that we can provide funds to see how we can improve the life of those who are businessmen and women, or those who are not in business, but to encourage them to participate in business by the grace of God. So, and also in terms of infrastructure, we'll try as much as possible to see how we can influence, infrastructural development within the constituency that is within the National Assembly, that is through our constituency project, and any other means by the grace of God that we should be able to get during our engagement at the National Assembly. First of all, to make myself accessible to everybody within the constituency, because I believe without them I wouldn't have been here. I want to, use that opportunity to be from time to time engaging my constituents in terms of, town halls meeting, whereby people can come from various wards and local government to interact with me in order to know exactly what are their needs, so that whatever comes my way, I will, direct it to exactly what my constituency want. Because without proper engagement, you will not be able to know what exactly your constituents' need is. So I think by so doing, and by the grace of God, we engage ourselves in a town halls meeting. I think by so doing, we should be able to know their problems, and by the grace of God, we will be able to handle that. Part of my promise to my constituents is, yes, one, of course, we intend to open an constituency office within the constituency, and how we operate it. You know, the tradition of the National Assembly requires that we are entitled to some aid. So I will want to use that opportunity or privilege given to me to employ some of my constituents to be at that office to attend to people's problems, so that, you know, once I'm here at the National Assembly, I have limited time because I also had to attend to, you know, the proceedings and other activities at the National Assembly. So I will employ people from my constituency to be able to handle that at home. I think by so doing, it will also reduce the pressure on me, and will also make ourselves so very close to our people in order to guide us on what exactly do they want.
This is where we call it a day on this week's edition of the Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us, and see you again next week.